Good day, students. You're welcome to our second commerce class in this module. My name remains Mr. Emmanuel. In today's class, we will be looking at business documents, the various documents that are used in business transactions. We will also be considering the terms of sales. Business documents are various documents that are used in a business transaction. And first that we will consider is a letter of inquiry or an inquiry letter. This is a letter that is sent by a prospective buyer to the seller, inquiring or asking about details of some products. If you want to get a product, the way of asking the seller for the details, the particulars, or the qualities of that product, the price of the product, and the payment terms of the product is the inquiry. An inquiry letter may be in form of a written letter or an already existed standard form that is just filled. An inquiry can also be in form of a telephone call or a physical inquiry. The next business document we will be considering is a quotation or a catalog or price list. These three serve the same purpose. A quotation is a list of items that has been requested stating their qualities and their prices. A price list is a list of all items by the producer or the seller listing the items and their prices. A catalog is similar to a price list, but this contains pictures of the products. So these three serve the same purpose. It is used to communicate to the buyer the details of their inquiry, or to guide them in choosing which product that they would buy. The second business document is an order. An order is a document that is used to request for a document that has been selected. So you send a letter of inquiry to ask about what they have. They reply you with a quotation, price list, or catalog. So when you choose, you send an order. So you state the type of product you want and the quantity. The next business document we will be considering is the invoice. The invoice is a document sent by the seller to the buyer stating the goods that has been delivered. An invoice is not necessarily a document requesting for payment. It is only a document that is sent to the consumer or the buyer to state what the consumer have bought and delivered. It would carry details, the name and particulars of the goods, their quantity and the prices of each, and the total. An invoice will carry the name of the buyer and the seller. This is an example of an invoice. Another business document we will be considering is a receipt. A receipt is an evidence of payment. It is used by the seller to confirm that he has received payment from the buyer for the goods that was purchased. Another business document is a delivery or dispatch note. A delivery note is a note that is used to send goods from the seller to the buyer using the seller's own means of transportation. A delivery note consists of the particulars of the goods, that is, details about the goods and their quantities, but it does not include the prices of those goods. It is used to ensure that the right good and the amount of goods is sent to the buyer and they were in good condition. Our next business document is the consignment note. A consignment is the goods that is being sent from the seller to the buyer. The seller who is sending the goods is known as the consignor. The receiver, the buyer, is known as the consignee. A consignment note is used when a seller is sending to the buyer but with an independent distributor or courier service. So take for example, PZ Nigeria Limited wants to send goods to a consumer in Jos, but they want to use ABC Transport. So in this case, they use a consignment note. It's similar to a delivery note, but it's different. A delivery note is used when the seller is using his own means of transport. A consignment note is used when the seller is using an independent transporter. Our next business document is the statement of account. A statement of account is a statement that is sent by the seller to the buyer, showing the position of the buyer. It is used to tell the buyer where he stands in the books of account of the seller. The statement of account shows the opening balances, whether the buyer is owing the seller or whether he has some funds with the seller. That's the balance brought forward. It also includes all transactions that were made within a specific period of time. That is, purchases, invoices and their reference number, and all payments that was made by the buyer to the seller. It also includes all transactions and movements such as debit notes and credit notes. And it is ended with a balance carried down. That is the financial position of the buyer at the end of the period. We mentioned debit notes and credit notes. Let's see what they mean. A credit note is a note usually prepared in red ink, sent by the seller to the buyer, informing the buyer that due to some transactions, maybe damaged products or overcharge or overestimation in their invoices, that a particular amount which is stated in the credit note stands as a credit to them. This means that it reduces any amount that the buyer is owing the seller. A credit note is used when there is an overestimation in an invoice that was sent, or when some product that has been sent is damaged. A credit note can also be used when it is discovered that the packaging that was used to send some documents or some goods is actually empty. The direct opposite of the credit note is the debit note. A debit note is used when the seller wants to inform the buyer that the amount that he stands owing has increased by a particular amount. So the seller writes a debit note and sends to the buyer, informing him that the amount stated in the debit has been added to the amount that this buyer is owing the seller. A debit note is used when it is discovered that there has been an underestimation in an invoice. Underestimation means that when you are adding up, your totals is below the required or the needed totals. Take for example, you had 5 plus 7 plus 3. And then you total it as 12 instead of 15. That is an understatement. So a debit note is used when the invoice is understated. The last business document we will be considering is an advice note. An advice note is sent by the seller to the buyer, informing him that the goods that he requested for has been dispatched. That is, when they are sending it through either a shipment cargo or air cargo or through road transport. It is sent so that the buyer prepares his mind and to know what he would be expecting when the goods arrive. Thank you for your attention in this class. See you in the next class.